Good morning everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today is not going to be a very fun video. Today is actually going to be a bit of more insight into my past anatomy week, which was pretty horrible to say the least. For one, it was anatomy week, which all the horrible stories that you've heard about anatomy week for veterinary science, they're all true. And then on top of it, it was just a horrible week. But yeah, I thought that you guys might like some more proper insight into this, and I also really felt like sharing this because I need to complain after a week this bad. So yeah, let's just get started. So firstly, as you guys can see, it's a bit of a different setting than what I usually have. But yeah, after anatomy week, my family and I just decided that we all needed a break. So we have a stand here at Boschuk Mountain Estate. I'll leave a link in the description because there are still a few stands for sale. And yeah, we just came and took a weekend off and just took a break from everything to just take a breather. So yeah. So this is actually this will probably be released a while after it was shot, so this is actually being shot on the 20th of June. And in the past week, I had my anatomy week. It was the third one for the year. And yeah, it really didn't go well. For one, they decided the best decision ever to put two blocks in one. So how anatomy works at Onderste Poort is that for most of the year, you don't have normally scheduled anatomy classes. You have all your other classes, and then every now and then you have a full week of just anatomy. So Monday to Friday you have anatomy, and then the next Monday you have the anatomy test for that block. We call that week a block. And then, yeah, obviously now with the whole situation, it has changed, and now it's online. So we have anatomy week from a Friday until the next Thursday, and then that following Friday we have the test for the block. And yeah, something to do with the current situation, they had to put two of our blocks in one. So usually in a block you will address one part of the body. For example, our first block was the head, and then the next two blocks would have been the thorax and then the abdomen, and they decided to put them together, quite possibly because we're running short on time with the whole thing going on and classes being online. So, to say the least, it was an impossible amount of work. I literally worked from 8 in the morning until 11 at night. I know a lot of people who worked just as much, who worked more. Some people completely gave up and didn't work at all. But it was an incredible amount of work. Anatomy in general is just crazy. It is impossible to ever describe to someone what an anatomy week is like, because I mean, I know that I heard a lot from random people who I knew, people who were studying vet, people who didn't study vet and knew absolutely nothing about it, but who still told me how horrible anatomy week is. And I was sort of like, yeah, well, it can't be that bad, it's just a lot of work. You just do the work and you're fine. And it is really that horrible. It is as horrible as everyone says it is, but not just for the work. I mean, the work is an incredible amount because you literally learn everything. You learn the structures, the functions, you learn the different organs, the muscles, the ligaments, the lymphatics, the blood vessels. You learn everything. Everything that could possibly be there, you learn. And then you also learn, their basic functions. Like, you don't learn how they function, but you learn their functions. And it's just a lot. Even if you just do one part of the body at a time, it is still an incredible amount, and it is so taxing on every single part of you, your mind, your body, everything. And then on top of that, on top of the amount of work, the biggest issue that comes with an anatomy week is the effect that it has on you. It drains you so much, and it actually comes with so much self-doubt because you're constantly working. And most of the time you feel like you get very little or nothing out of it. So you honestly just feel so demotivated and like there is just no point, and you keep working because you can't stop working and you can't take a break, but it still feels like no matter how much you work, it makes no difference. So there you go, there was my first round about anatomy. And now they came and they said, okay, but we're gonna do 2 blocks in one. It was horrible. It was really. I don't know how we did it. I actually still don't believe that we did it, that we're actually through it. It is honestly the best feeling afterwards when you're done. You don't even care if you failed or passed the test. All that matters is that you're done. You don't need to do the work anymore. And then they went and said, okay, well, since we're asking 2 blocks in one, we won't ask any ID, so any identification of structures. Which just means that, they took the easy work away. Because honestly, the easy thing is to just know what the structure is. The difficult thing is to know what it does and how it works. So, and the thing is that you still need to know the structure to know its function and to know what it does. So, it didn't really help us at all. It just took away the easy questions of the test. Second thing that made this week so much more difficult than the others, we've already had 2 anatomy weeks. The first one was back when everything was normal. We went to class every day, we had self-study sessions every day, and we had a test at the end of it, which was, we basically went through, we looked at structures, we named them, we named their functions. Plain and simple. Then, crisis. The next block was online, and we had the embryology block, which is basically just the development of all animals from fertilization to when the animal gets born. So that was a previous block, it was online. They made that the first online block because there isn't a lot that you can practically do with that. It's mostly just theory, so it was a really good block to have online. And then this was the third block with the thorax and the abdomen. And another problem that came in this week that really had a big effect on me was that in the beginning of the year, there was a bit of a miscommunication in which I was led to believe that we did not need the anatomy textbook. I was led to believe that it would be nice to have it, it would sort of be supplementary, but the notes that they would provide would be enough. And I think that also came from the third years that I know that told me that they gave us notes. But for our year, they redid the anatomy module sort of to just keep all the information up to date and everything. This year they did it differently, they changed the content a little, and they ended up saying that we needed to use a textbook. Unfortunately, the textbook is about 5,000 Rand. So, for all the first years and younger out there, you need a 5,000 Rand textbook for your second year, so start saving. And you also use it again for third year. So I really recommend that you just get it instead of just trying to make do without it. Because I remember also with the first week, I didn't think that we needed the textbook. I got there, did the first day, came back the next morning after having studied so hard on the supplementary notes that they gave us, and I realized that it didn't even cover half the work that we needed. And then usually we would be able to go to the library to use a textbook there, but they only have one textbook, like one copy of that textbook. So it's really difficult because a lot of people want to take it out and you can't take it out for more than 2 hours. So then in the first week already I ordered a textbook for myself because I realized that I definitely needed it. Obviously it wouldn't come in time for the end of the week and for me to study for all of that, but yeah. So I ordered it already in the first week, and then with the whole pandemic that started, it didn't come, and then I emailed them and they were like, oh, but it should be there. It's like, well, yeah, it's not. And they're like, no, they'll check on it, and a month later I emailed them again, and oh yeah, it really should be there by now. It still hasn't come. In the end they gave us a refund. Point being, I still didn't have a textbook. And then with the whole pandemic and classes being online, the lecturers actually had to make a plan because everyone who didn't have a textbook, which was a reasonable amount because a lot of people couldn't afford it, because we weren't told, for example, the previous year that we would need such an expensive textbook. So we sort of got there the first week and they were like, oh, you need this, and so a lot of people couldn't just do that, and we couldn't use the library anymore because campus was closed. So the lecturers actually made arrangements with an online library to have the book be available to a certain amount of students for about 2 months, I think. So if we didn't have a textbook, we had to email the lecturers, they made the online book available for us, and then we could use that. The problem with the online textbook is that it is very clumsy and difficult to use. So instead of like a normal book where you could just page and, just normal, it's very difficult to scroll and move around, because if you can see both pages or the full page, then it's too small to read. And then if you actually zoom in enough to be able to read it, then it's really clumsy to move it around and scroll, because you can't really drag it with the mouse. You have to scroll it around, and it takes forever to find something. And now, with all the classes being online, the tests are online too. And with that, it is obviously an open book test, because, they can't really keep us from having an open book test. But then they decided that since it's open book, they'll make the tests more difficult, to sort of compensate for that. The problem is, with the online textbook, it takes so long to find anything, because you can't just quickly page through, and you can't just quickly do this and quickly check that. It's a whole process every single time. So basically, if you had an online textbook, you didn't have an open book test, or you would be able to get halfway through the test and then you run out of time. So I realized that at the beginning of the week, and I decided that I would make summaries, and then I would be able to have my notes with me, be able to page through, look quickly. The work would be a lot less because you just have the necessary information in there. And I don't, in general, summarize. It's not a way of studying that really works for me. I feel it takes too much time for what it gives back. But with the whole open book test thing and the online textbook being such a difficult thing to work with for me, I don't know that other people struggle as much, but it's not working for me. I don't usually make summaries, so it took me a long time to make them, because I was really not used to doing it. I wasn't used to writing as much. My arm was cramping all over after the first day. So it literally took me, where their schedule said that we should be done around 4, with breaks in between everything, I was done at about 11, 12 every night with my summaries. And the problem with that as well was that it took me all day to make the summary, and then I hadn't even studied it. So that really took a lot of my time, and it was exhausting. It was constant working, no breaks. And it just really becomes a lot if you every single day for a whole week do that amount of work. And you sort of feel like it never ends, because you've just finished, and then you sleep for a few hours, not even enough sleep, and then the moment that you wake up, the same amount of work is waiting for you that there was the previous day. So you really just feel like you're not getting anywhere, and you hadn't studied the work from the previous day, so you don't really know it. So in the end, it wasn't the best emotional experience. Then with that, it was so cold. It was, according to the news, the coldest week that Gauteng, which is my province, has seen in years. I think it was 4 years or something. So it was freezing, which meant that it was too cold for me to sit at my desk. If you guys don't know this about me, for the people who do know me, I'm horrible with cold. I cannot deal with cold. I become so grumpy, so annoyed, I cannot focus. Cold is just the worst thing in the world to me. So now I cannot sit at my desk and work because I become so cold I cannot function. So I sit in bed at work, which I don't agree with in general. I like having my study space and it being neat and organized, and that I don't have to struggle with stuff, because honestly, the studying is enough of a struggle. So I had to sit in bed, and the problem with that was, after 10 years of horse riding, you have a bad back. It is guaranteed, between the impact that horse riding itself has on you and between all the falling off that happens. Yes, you do fall off a horse a lot in 10 years. It's inevitable. If you don't fall off, there is really something wrong with you, or the horse isn't alive. So I have pretty bad back issues, and with me sitting in bed all day, it hurts a lot. So, and then your body sort of adjusts to it, and then you get up afterwards, and it just feels like everything is breaking as you stretch. So then that added to it. It's constantly painful, it's constantly uncomfortable, you're constantly working, and it's just... I'm really ranting in this video, guys. This isn't even an informational video. This is just me ranting about how horrible this week was. With all of that happening, I think it was the Wednesday, we were supposed to write the test on the Friday, and the Wednesday my textbook just stopped working. And it stopped working at about 12, and around 8 or 9 I gave up in the evening. So it was basically a whole day that I lost, that I couldn't summarize, that I couldn't really do much. I tried to study the summaries that I had already made, but it was also that I was so tired at that point from so much working that I could barely do anything. And it was also just a horrible day. For another thing, this block was at the end of a semester, so we're all just exhausted, we're stressed, we've been working so hard for so long, the online environment is stressful, you feel separated from everyone else. I actually deal a lot better with it than some other people that I have talked to and that I've heard of, because, yeah, I don't really like people much. I'm really happy on my own. But a lot of people like being around other people. They like talking. They like hearing that the other person is going through the same thing constantly, being there for each other. So it's been a very stressful time, and they just put that block, when we were at our last. And it was just, I was sitting there and the textbook wasn't working, and I was trying to study my summaries, and I wanted to, and I was just like, I just can't. I am dead. I am done. This is the perfect excuse to not be working, and I knew that I had to work because I had to finish the work. It's not just like you can be like, it's okay, I'm not going to do it, because then you fail. And no one's going to be like, oh, it's okay, you can just keep going. It's okay if you fail anatomy, you can go to third year. That's not how it works. You actually need to pass. And it was just such a horrible day and week, actually, because my dog, it was supposed to be a family dog, but he just completely became my dog. And we'd had him for 4.5 years. And in that week, literally from the Monday, he basically started dying. He went backwards so quickly, all at once. And, his joints gave in, his muscles gave in. He started bringing up bile, and it was horrible. And, it was the first full day that I had been making summaries, and I had sat there the whole day. And I remember it was 4 o'clock. It was the time that we were supposed to finish, and I had only finished with the first section of the work, and we had 3 sections. And I'd been working from 8 o'clock constantly, so hard. I'd been working so hard and putting everything into it. And I was just so demotivated that I was so behind already, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to have to work through the night if that's what it takes, but I'm going to have to do this. And I did the quiz, because we have a quiz after each section, and I think I got 65% for the quiz, which is passing, and it's passing well. I mean, 50 is a pass, but I just felt that after all of that, I put so much more effort into that than I have for any of the previous stuff, and it just had no effect. If I'd put less effort in, if I put the normal amount of effort in, I get about 60, and I put everything into that day, and I got 5% extra, and we had decided to the next day have our dog be put down, because he was already 12 years old, and we were like, even if we do take him to the vet and they do give him medication, it's just going to stretch it out for about 3 months, and we're going to be back to where we are right now. And, he'd had a good life, he'd had a happy life. We decided that it would be best for him, rather than just extend his suffering for as long as it suits us. And I remember I was just sitting there at that computer, and my mom just came in, and I just told her that I just spent my last good day with my dog on anatomy that didn't even get me anywhere. And I ended up just taking about an hour off from all the work, and we went to the dog park, because he loved to run. He was actually a shelter dog, and he was very abused in his previous situation. We don't know anything about it, but obviously we could tell by how he acts that he was terrified of people, and you're not that scared of a person and a person lifting their hand if you've never known them. It obviously means that you do know them. You know what they do. And the only time that I really saw him at his happiest was when he was just running. I mean, my parents had a big yard, and he would just run, or we would take him to the park, and he would just run for as long as he possibly can. And he was always so attached to me. He'd always be stuck to my leg, and then we'd come to an open space, and I'd take the leash off, and he would just run. And we took him to the park that day, and I took the leash off, and he just stood there, and he just looked at the grass and at the sun, and and I don't think he even took any of it in. There were some other dogs there, and he didn't even respond to them. He just sort of sat there, and he walked around a little bit, and at one point another woman came to talk to us, and he just sort of went off into the longer grass, and he just lay there. I think that was actually his favorite time, and there were no people bothering him, and there were no dogs bothering him, and he could just be there for a bit. And it was actually really sad to me that he didn't run, because that was what he always did. That was what I actually took him there to do, but I also suspected that he wouldn't be able to. So we had him there for a while, and then as the sun started to go down, it was cold again, and obviously being so old, he couldn't tolerate the cold very well. So we took him home, and he slept inside, and I took good care of him and sort of just sat with him and stroked his head. And I have my little puppy Carla, and he always hated her. He hates puppies with everything in him. He's sort of like the grumpy old guy, and he just doesn't want to be bothered by the puppies. And, she didn't even try to bother him. He was lying in her bed and she was lying on the floor. She didn't even care. I was just sitting there stroking his head. And the next day, on the day that my textbook stopped working and it felt like everything just wasn't working, the next morning we took him to be put down at the vet. So yeah, sorry. Point being, it was a bit of a difficult week. And yeah, it was anatomy, and it was everything else, and it was the textbook, it was personal issues, it was just everything all on top of each other for the whole week. And it was just, yeah. And I remember that in the end, I didn't even finish the summaries. I ended up the following day when the textbook started working again, because I asked on our vet WhatsApp group, and everyone was like, "Oh yeah, that's happened to me." I was like, "Well, what do you do about it? You sort of need to do the work." And the lecturers couldn't really do much because it's not their website. They just asked another website to do it for them. So, you know, but the next day the textbook was available again, and I ended up just completing the previous day's work and literally just leaving the last day out. And then the second part of my last day, I just tried to study my summaries, but not quite study because I didn't have enough time left. I think around 8 I was completely finished, so then I literally just went through my notes and organized it in a way that I would be able to find the answers the following day during the test. So I put on sticky notes and I highlighted and I made little colorful blocks and circles around everything just so that I'd be able to find the answers. And, it ended up, I don't even know how it went through the test because I honestly just wanted it to be over. So I was like, okay, this answer, look through the notes, find it, put it in, look through the notes, don't find it, it's okay. It just needs to be over. Like, this answer looks nice, I'll take that one. And we actually wrote 2 tests, one for the thorax and one for the abdomen. So it was also really long, and you sort of finish with the first one, you're so thankful that it's done, and you're like, oh wait, we're not done. And then it's like round 2, and it was a very, very taxing week. It was a very taxing test. And in the end, it didn't bother me as much because afterwards I was just so happy that it was done. I was just so happy that it was over. I didn't care how it went or what happened. It was just over, and I didn't have to deal with that week anymore. I didn't have to deal with any of it anymore, and I was just so thankful that it was over. And afterwards, I sort of think about it and I'm like, but I still don't know the work, and I need to know it for the exam, etc., etc. So it's a bit of a problem. And then today, just a Saturday, they gave out the calendar for the rest of the year. I looked at it and I actually felt like giving up. I have only once throughout this whole process so far felt like giving up vet school, and that was in the first anatomy week. And it was just at a point of where we had a few weeks of classes and I'd written a few tests and I've done some assignments, and I just felt like none of the work that I was putting in was giving results. I was barely passing to failing. It wasn't going well, and I was putting in so much effort, and I just felt like if this is what's going on, if I'm putting everything I have in and it's not giving any results, then I must not be good enough. Then why am I even trying? Why am I even trying to do this? That, I'm basically torturing myself, trying to make myself do something that I am unable to do. And honestly, it's a scary feeling for someone who has been convinced that they were going to be a vet their whole lives. And in the end, it was on the second day of my first week of anatomy that I felt that way the first time. And it was a horrible and terrifying feeling, and I felt like I was worth nothing because I gave my everything and I got nothing. So you most likely will feel like that at some point during your studies. I remember that night I made the decision that I will not even consider thinking that again, even consider feeling that again. I will never go down that road again, because I knew that I was going to do this, and I knew that I was going to finish it, so there would be no point in me getting all upset and worried and freaking out over the small things. So I refused to think like that again throughout the week, and I just did everything that I could. And I got there at the test, and we were all waiting to go in, and I was standing there talking to a group of friends, and we were sort of going on about the week and how horrible it was, and the one girl was like, "Listen guys, was I the only one who felt like just giving up on vet school this week?" And I mean, a lot of times you say, like, I feel like giving up, and I feel like giving up, I feel like dropping out of school. You say it quite often. It just sounds so much nicer, but at that point, you actually really consider giving up. You really want to just step away and just stop trying because it's just not worth it. It's how you actually feel. And everyone agreed. You can see that everyone was just so done with the whole thing. And that was our first anatomy week in our second year, guys. It wasn't even like we had been going through all of this for so long. And I think that's also what made it so scary for me, is that, we're only at the beginning. If we feel that way now, how am I going to feel in 2-3 years when I'm working even harder? Now with the exams and the rest of anatomy, if I feel like this after 1 week of anatomy, I honestly feel like, is it worth even trying to go through that? Is it worth doing that to myself? Like, I don't, it sort of feels like I shouldn't need to put myself through that. And, honestly, that is what makes anatomy so difficult. It is the self-doubt that it creates in yourself. It is how basically worthless it makes you feel. And some people, honestly, are not that badly affected. I mean, I can promise you there is going to be one crazy smart kid in every class who's going to be like, "Oh, it's just anatomy." And they just get 90s for everything. They barely study and they're fine. There is always going to be that one kid. But honestly, me personally, anatomy week really takes a toll on me, and quite often more emotionally than it does physically. But in the end, I always just try to remember I can only do what I can do. I cannot do more than what I am physically capable of. And I made a promise to myself from the start to do everything that I am able to do for as long as I am able to do it. And if I end up failing vet school, then that's fine, because I would know that I gave my everything. And if I end up being a vet one day, then I will know that it was worth it. And I did it, and I finished. I didn't just sit through it and suffered and nothing came out of it. But, I did it, and it was worth it. And I'm so waiting for that to happen. One of the reasons why I was actually hesitant about making this channel is because there's always this tiny voice at the back of my mind of, what if you fail? What if you never become a vet? What if you are never able to do this? And I just decided, well, I'm going to give it my all anyway. So I would love to give you guys advice and motivation, and to tell you that it's all going to be okay, and don't worry, no matter what happens, it's going to be fine. And all of that is true. But in anatomy week, none of that seems to be true. You don't want to believe any of that. You don't even want to hear any of that. You just want to get it over with. And I know people are always like, "Oh, but you shouldn't just get it over with. You shouldn't just pass. It's anatomy. You should know these things." And none of that matters in anatomy week. You really just try to survive. So, honestly, guys, just keep going. I remember during this week, so many times with all my friends that I talked to, we would quite often get to the place of just. You don't know what you should just. You don't know what you just feel. You don't know what just to do. You just end up saying just. Can it just not be like this? Just be better, just be less, but can I just pause? Can I just not have to do this? Can I just... So, this is just such a just week. It's just too much. It's just too difficult. Right now, I am in the bush. I'm in one of the most beautiful places in the world. I've got my boyfriend lying in the bucket eating chips. If you heard crunches throughout the video, he was just eating chips. For as much as you can, give yourself a break. Even if you don't need it right then. If you have 10 minutes off, give yourself a break. Just take a break, even if you feel like, oh, but I can still go. Just take a break. Give yourself every little bit that you can, because in the end, you need every little bit. And just keep going. Just take it one step at a time. Do one more little tiny part of a page at a time. Do one paragraph at a time. Do one sentence at a time. Just don't give up. Because if I give up now, like I have seriously considered after getting that calendar, then I will never have the chance of becoming a vet. And if I keep going now, then there is a chance, a tiny, tiny chance, because that calendar is horrible and quite frankly impossible, but there is still a chance. And if I give up now, then that chance just goes away. And I don't think anything is worth giving up that chance for. If this thing is your dream, if this is the thing that you want to accomplish, if this is the thing that you want to do with your life, just go do it. I remember my dad, the thing that he always told me was, go for it. You know, no matter what it is that you want to do, no matter what it is that you're doing, just go for it. Give it your all. Give it everything that you can. Just go for it. For all the first years that I have scared with this video about how horrible it is, I am sorry. And quite possibly if I now show you what the worst anatomy week for me was like, maybe the anatomy weeks won't be as bad for you because you prepared yourself. For all the people who still don't quite get how bad it is, it might be better for you because at least you're going in with an open mind. But honestly guys, don't be scared of anatomy. It honestly gets you nowhere, and just remember that so many vets before you have done it. So many people who are in 3rd year and 4th year and 5th year and final year and who are already vets have done this. They have done this, they have managed it. Anatomy is just another boulder in the way, and when you look back, it is honestly just a stepping stone. I don't know yet, I'm not done yet, but through all the things that I've been through all the things that I've studied so hard for, that I've struggled so much with, when I look back at it, it was this tiny stepping stone that I just hopped over in the end to get where I needed to be. It wasn't as important as it felt in the moment. And anatomy is obviously always going to be important if you want to be a vet. But it is not the biggest thing, it is not the only thing. Most important thing that I learned from this week, it is definitely not worth giving your dog's last good day up for anatomy. Always just try to take a step back. Remember, it's just a test. It always sort of freaks me out when I think about a test and the effect that it has on me and on other people and the effect that it has on everyone surrounding you. And always remember, anatomy week is just 1 week. That was the thing that I lived by this week, is that it's just 1 week, it's just 7 days, and it is so nearly over. For everyone who hasn't had anatomy, good luck, and don't panic. It does look horrible, but in the end, it is always doable, it is always manageable. And for everyone who has anatomy right now, all my fellow second years, I am sorry. Just keep going, because we can do this. And if we manage to get in, then we can manage to get out, and I really believe that, because I have to believe that, because I refuse to give up because of anatomy. So just keep going. Take it one sentence at a time and just get to the end of that week. You can do it. Every other vet has done it before you. I seriously think that every single person in my group has the ability, and easily has the ability, to become a vet one day and to pass every module that we still have. And I know that we can do it. So I am going to be in the bush now, and I'm going to go have a picnic with my most amazing boyfriend ever. Hey, Leafy!
I'm hiding.
He's amazing, isn't he?
I'm hiding.
I love you.
I love you too, but I'm hiding.
Oh. But yeah, this is the end of my video, and I have ranted a fair amount, and I have poured a fair amount of my feelings into this, and I hope that this has helped some people who maybe also went through anatomy week now and just feel so lost and needed someone to relate to. And for everyone who is done with anatomy week and laughing at us, I hope you enjoy your laughter, because I really hope that I can laugh about it one day too. So I hope you guys all have an amazing day. I'm going to try and put in a few clips of this beautiful place to just give you guys a nice a nice place to be as well while you're watching the video. Just keep going. Hope you guys have an amazing day, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye, guys!